today's show, we are joined by Calvin Tucker, also known as Black Noah. Calvin lives in Alabama, USA, and is an advocate for sterilization and TNR. Calvin's love of animals does not only extend to cats, but many other animals. Calvin has rehomed cats, dogs, alpacas, and even a tarantula. Calvin has a huge following on Instagram with over 69,000 people supporting his work. You can follow Calvin by searching Instagram for @BlackNoah1 to find out more about his work, make a donation, join his Patreon program, or watch his feature on the DODO. Welcome, Calvin, to our Torre Argentina podcast. We really appreciate your time and thank you for agreeing to be on our show. Now, I have been following you on Instagram for quite a while, and I'm aware of all the wonderful work that you do. But for the benefit of the listeners, could you fill everybody in on who you are and what it is that you do?
My name is Calvin Tucker. I go by the alias of Black Noah, and basically I feed over 90 cats 7 days a week. I do TNR, trap, neuter, and return. I find cats and dogs for forever homes. I rescue cats, I rescue dogs, birds, bees, you name it, I rescue it. So basically that's what I do in a nutshell, just out here every day trying to help animals.
Okay, thank you. So some of our listeners may have already seen you. You were featured on the DODO. Yes. And I think for you, that is where everything all started. So I know a little about King Henry. Could you tell our listeners about the story of King Henry and how he changed your life in so many ways?
Actually started before the DODO.
Okay.
The DODO was a big stepping stone and a help, but I had been putting in work and featured locally on most news stations in my city, way before years before the DODO. But basically, I did not like cats. I was allergic to cats. I just didn't like them. I used every excuse. I really was allergic, but I used every other excuse under the sun not to be around people who had cats. I didn't like the cat hair being on me. I was like, they were too sneaky. I just didn't like cats. And, November 15th, 2015, I was getting off from work. And when I went outside to bring some supplies and my stuff that I take to work every day to my truck, there was Henry sitting by the front tire of my car. And he was a little 4-month-old kitten. And I don't know, just the way he looked at me, it just sparked an emotion in me I had never felt before. So I fed him some crackers and gave him some water, and I left and went home, and I bought some cat food on my way home. And I said, if he's there in the morning, I'll feed him. If he's not, great. That would be even better. And when I arrived the next morning, 7 a.m. to clock in, there he was. And that started me feeding him from November 15, 2015 until January 10 of 2016. That's the day I took him home and basically changed my whole life.
So you had never seen King Henry before this one day? This was the
Never
first
had seen
time.
him. Never had seen him before November 15, 2015.
So you didn't know where he'd come from? There was no mum cat around or anything like that? He just appeared?
Later, a coworker and myself put a backstory together. I work on a campus that's 322 acres.
Okay.
And we have residential homes all over the campus. After I had took him home, she talked to me about another little gray kitten that was at the building that she was in, which was about a quarter of a mile away.
Wow, so it's quite far,
So
really.
what happened was she said that in November, she had been seeing two little gray kittens. And she said sometime in November, keep in mind, I saw him November 15th.
Mm-hmm.
She said she had been seeing two little gray kittens all through September, October, and the first half of November. And she said one of them disappeared. That was Henry that disappeared. So I think he maybe traveled a little too far through the woods because there was wood separating my building from her building. I think he may have went out looking for food, traveled a little too far, got lost, and just happened upon me that day. And since I fed him, he just decided to stay there.
Wow.
So we're pretty sure that's how that happened. He was at her building first, and he just maybe traveled a little too far, got lost, and
And he found
God
you, and
sent him my way.
yeah. Do you know what happened to the other little kitten?
I don't. We don't. Actually, matter of fact, let me backtrack. Matter of fact, a year later, I moved on campus as the caretaker. So they moved me into a 3-bedroom house. So it was just Henry and myself. And there was now I'm not for sure, but there was a gray cat. Now this is a year later. So now Henry is about a year and a half old. But there was a cat about the same size as Henry, same age, showed up to the house and was on my deck one day when I opened the door, just laying there. That was the only day I saw it. So it disappeared after that day. So I don't know if that was his sister or not. You got to remember, this is 326 acres.
Yeah.
So it's possibly that, the cat, she could still be out there. I don't know. I mean, because it's mostly woods.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But King Henry was rescued, and that's a really nice story, obviously, which has sort of launched what you do through the DODO, despite you already doing this work beforehand. So it's been really special in so many ways, really.
Right.
So going back to that moment when you found King Henry, and you said you'd been working locally and you didn't really like cats, what was it that changed within you to not only want to help cats, but to help other animals as well?
As I said on the very first interview with a lady named Janet Hall, WBRC 6 here in Birmingham, Alabama, as I told her, because I did the first interview with her back in 2018, this was God's work. And I still say that to the day, this was God's work, because not only did I not like cats, but I never, ever really helped any other animals. Like, I was just living life, working with kids. And I thought that was my calling, working with kids. So I was just focused on working. I was doing 2 jobs, just trying to make ends meet. So that was my focus. So I really, didn't have time for animals. I really didn't focus on animals. But I can't put into words or articulate what happened to me November 15th when I first saw Henry. But all I know is something changed in me. Mm-hmm. And so once I saw Henry that first day, I felt something change in me. I knew I had to help him. I felt he helped me as well. Couldn't explain it, still can't explain it, but I just know it helped me. And once I took him home, it's like my eyes were open and I started seeing cats. And I'm pretty sure I had seen them all my life, but I just had a blind eye to them at gas stations, behind dumpsters and things of that nature. It was like everywhere I would go, I would start seeing stray or feral cats or kittens. And I started feeding them and started doing TNR. Maybe 8 months later, I started doing TNR. But basically, that's how it all changed. I credit day one, and 4.5 years later, this is God's work, not mine.
So it's almost like God put Henry in front of you to shape that path going forward to
Absolutely.
help so many other animals.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
Could you tell our listeners about your colonies of cats that you look after? I know you look after, I think the figure was 90 cats on a daily basis.
Correct. Actually, it just went up now that I think about it, because last Sunday we found a colony. My nephew and myself found a colony of 7.
Wow.
So it's right at 100 cats. Basically, I got cats in 2 different counties. They're all spread out, and basically the numbers go from some locations being just 1 single cat that I feed every day, to a colony of about 15 cats. They're all spread out. So basically I start at the farthest location first, and then I work my way back home. So, basically I just go every day and clean the bowls out. I give them fresh food, dry and wet food, as well as fresh, clean water. I have feeding stations that I've turned plastic bins into little feeding stations, so it keeps the food dry. I put the food in there. I have warming houses, the little styrofoam houses with the straw in it that they can stay in to keep warm or dry when it rains, things of that nature. I maybe got about 115 of those things spread it out throughout 2 counties, all over. So basically I just feed these cats every day. And if I notice that they're sick or have, upper respiratory infections, I'll administer antibiotics in the wet food. Some of them I'm able to give by mouth. If they're really feral and it really looks bad, then I'll trap them and get them to a vet to get, a long-acting antibiotic shot, Convenia or something like that. So basically, I just, try to manage these colonies best I can, make sure they have food, water, shelter, and, that they're medically taken care of.
How long do you think it takes you to do this? Because obviously, what kind of distance are you working across for all of these colonies?
It takes about 3.5 hours every day.
Okay. So it's
roughly 3.5 hours.
Big portion of your time. And do you go at the same time every day so the cats know you're arriving with the food?
Unless I have something that just emergency come up, every day I try to leave the house about 11 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm done about 2:30, something like that.
So it's a really big thing to do that every day.
Yeah, every day.
365 days a year.
Yeah, unless I have, I have some backups of some friends that fill in, and my nephew has taken a large role with helping me feed some of the locations. Recently, if I have an emergency, I'll call on him and he'll get a couple of my locations. But the majority I feed every day. If I have an emergency, I have people that'll feed 2 or 3 locations because they're really far from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have people in that area. So if I have something come up, I'll get them to feed those, but I still handle 90% of it every day by myself.
So do you find the numbers within your colony stabilize with the sterilizations, or do you find more and more that people add to these colonies by abandoning cats there?
I've saw both. At one of my biggest colonies, I actually have 6 of those cats. There was about 18 cats at this location.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 4 cats at this location now.
Okay.
Because I have 6 of them downstairs. They now live with me until they'll be adopted, or if 2 of them are really, really feral, so they may live here forever.
Okay.
We TNR, when I say we, I mean me. I TNR. I would say there was 17 of them, 18. I think it was 18 of them. I TNR 16 of them.
Mm-hmm.
10 or 16 of them. And the thing about this particular location is this is the most unstable one because it's at a restaurant. Now, if it was just those 18, it would be fine. And, even though it's kind of tricky where it is, I still was able to get it under control. I'm sorry here. I may have lost you. Okay.
Okay.
I was able to get it under control. Like I say, there's only 4 now because some of them they were adopted. Like I say, 6 of them are at my house.
Mm-hmm.
I think 6 are at my house. I think 9 or 10 was adopted, and there's 4 now. But the 2 more just popped up last week, and the reason I say it's kind of tricky with this because it's at a restaurant, and there's a fence behind where I feed them and where they live, where their warming houses are. Behind that fence is a neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and a lady reached out to me. I had never met her before, but she left her a little note on one of my feeding tubs for me to call her. And I called her, and she had told me she had seen me out there feeding and trapping the cats, and that she lived in the neighborhood right behind. Her mother did. Long story short, she said there was about 26 cats at that house.
Wow.
So basically, when I would clean up my site, that's where the other cats would come and get, that's why I would see new cats all the time.
So was it like was she sort of hoarding situation?
No, I don't think they were her cats.
Right. Okay.
I think they were just taking up residence at her home, and she was feeding them outside.
Mm-hmm.
An older lady, and she was just trying to do, help the cats.
Yeah.
So I don't think they were her cats. I think they were just neighborhood cats. But I think my cats that I was taking care of was just hopping the fence and going over there. And then I think once some of her cats realized food is right across the fence, they started coming over. So I would notice, that I had a regular amount of cats. They all had names. And then, I would just pop up. I would go one day and there would be 2 or 3 new cats there. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've been feeding here for years. Where'd you come from?
Yeah.
So that sometimes happens at some of the locations, but some of the locations, all of them are spayed and neutered, and I don't have any surprises.
That's good. That's good to know. So what does it feel like for you to be responsible for so many cats on a daily basis? It must be quite a lot of pressure.
It can be mentally and physically draining at times. As far as doing the work itself is really nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a strong work ethic. Like I say, I've always worked 2 jobs. So, and basically this is a full-time job. Mm-hmm. So basically I was working 3 jobs, 2 jobs as well as rescue. So 3 jobs. So I've always had a crazy work ethic. So the work itself is nothing. It's mentally and physically draining. More mentally, I would say this work is more mentally hard than physically, definitely, because a lot of times you come to a colony. I've come to colonies and found cats like really, really sick, eyes closed from upper respiratory. You know how some cats at a colony may disappear for 4 or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
That plays a big part, in your psyche, and you worry, did something happen to them? Did a coyote come, or a hawk, or an owl, or some person do something? So I worry myself sick literally with that. Then they may show back up with a wound or a bad eye infection. A few sites, I would say 2 or 3 sites, I've discovered dead cats that I had to bury. They would disappear for a few days, and after a few days, I go looking for them and find them, a ways back into some woods or something. So that part, plays it can get emotional. Mm-hmm. I think it's more mentally draining than physical.
How do you cope with that mentally?
Just have to realize that everything is already written. Have to realize that I'm one person. I have to realize and remind myself that God has all of this in his hands, and some things are out of my control. All I can do is the best I can do and give it 110%, and the rest is on him. That's how I cope with it. I just do the best I can, and I leave the rest to God, because at the end of the day, he controls it all. So that's how I manage.
I've seen some of your videos on Instagram, and not even just cats, but if something happens to an animal, which maybe that they've died or they've been hit by cars and things, what I've noticed is you've always treat them with such respect and a lot of dignity. And it's, for someone on the outside looking in, it's a very nice thing to see this side of somebody, but so very compassionate and caring. And I think that does always come through in the work that you do. So it's quite difficult to think about that you struggle with this in your own ways because of what you see and have to deal with on a daily basis. So I do take my hat off to you and think well done, because it's not an easy job to do it. So yeah,
Thank you.
I do think that more people need to understand this other side to it, because I think even in our shelter, there's a lot of happy moments. Cats are adopted and you try and do your best, but we have a lot of cats as well who are sick and who pass away, and there's another side that people don't always see.
Right.
So people like you do bring this to the forefront and highlight it for other people.
Right. There's a lot out there. Yeah. I mean, I've passed plenty of dogs that were hit that I had no connection to. And, like you say, if you watch me, I'm always going to bury that dog and put a can of dog food, or if it's a cat, I'm going to put a can of cat food in the burial grave and, send them off the proper way. I just don't believe animals should just be laying out on the streets and people just pass them up. If I see one, I have to try to bury it. I just think it's the proper and I think it's the decent thing to do.
So in your colonies, you've found homes for some of your cats. So how do you get to know which ones would benefit or adapt to a home environment?
I've had some great fosters that's helped me out along the way. And basically just knowing your colonies, which cat is going to do well. There are some cats in the colonies that'll come up and you can pet them and they rub on you and purr and you sit down and talk to them. Those are the ones that go into the foster homes or now here at the Ark, and those are going to do well. There are some cats out there that's still out there that's totally feral. And like I say, I just trapped some recently and they're here. They went and got spayed and neutered, got all of their vaccines, combo tested. They're here. And they ended up being totally wild. And, I'm not going to throw them back on the street. Mm-hmm. They've been inside for a month now, and I'm fully committed to taming these guys. Even the lady who volunteers and comes over and helps me, just last Friday, she comes on Fridays. And so yesterday she was here and she was like, wow, when I went into both of the rooms, they didn't even run or try to hide. And I noticed a big difference in them in just 1 week. And I say it's because I go in there 3 or 4 times a day, 30 minutes each time. I just sit on the floor and I just watch something on my phone, watch a movie on my phone, and just let them know that my presence is not going to hurt them. And I think it's really working. I think that's the way to help some cats out of their shells if they just know that you're not going to hurt them. And I'll never forget when I first rescued King Henry, a lady told me something because I knew nothing about cats. And I'll never forget this. This was back in November of 2015. She said, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Meaning, the more time I spent with him, the better it was going to be. The more he was going to adjust. So I look at it like that. If you trap some cats and you bring them to, your shelter or your home, and you just put food down and you walk out, and that's that. And that's all you're doing, putting food down, scooping the litter box, not spending time. They're not going to get social. You got to go in, sit with them for hours, even if you have to break it up like I do. I can't just sit in there for 4 hours, at one time, but I can go in there 4 or 5 times a day and sit in there 30, 45 minutes each time, read a book. Sometimes I take a book in, sometimes I won't take anything. I just go in, make a pallet on the floor and just take a nap, and I'll wake up with them. I'll wake up and sometimes they're out for the cat trees and they're on the floor and they're only about 5 yards away from me looking at me, and no telling how long they had been looking at me before I woke up. And it's just that, doing that consistently and every day, you'll see a change in them. So that's my philosophy on it. And that's how I try to apply it and do it with mine. So that's basically how I figure out what cats are adoptable, and basically it's about doing home visits and learning the people that, the adopters, what their needs are, and, things of that nature.
How long does it take you to sort out adoptions? So when you say when you visit someone's home, do you try and pair the cat with the people so they would have the most perfect home for them, really, and maybe they need a quiet home, or maybe they need to be with other cats? What do you look for when you're choosing your potential adopters?
First thing foremost, if you mention the word outside, I will not adopt you.
Yeah.
I'm inside only. I've adopted 100, and actually Sunday, tomorrow, I have a very strong adoption. Possible adoption. So that cat will be 146 cats.
Wow.
That I found homes for. I think he's perfect for what me and the family have talked about. So I'll go do the home visit, things of that nature. But basically, if you mention the word outside, I will not adopt to you. No declawing, things of that nature. But I go do a home visit. I like to sit down and talk to the adopters to see if our spirits vibe. I don't care if you live in a palace, I don't care if you live in Buckingham Palace and it's immaculate. If our spirits doesn't vibe, then I'm not going to adopt to you. Like if I feel any red flags, like I said, you can have all the money in the world. You can have Bill Gates money. I'm not going to adopt to you because our spirits just didn't vibe. So, first, our spirits have to vibe. The home has to be safe. I look for, things like, will there be dogs around? And if there's a dog around, we'll do a meet and greet with the dog to see how that works out first. I'm not just gonna, oh yeah, our dog is wonderful with the cats. With cats, he loves cats. I can't trust that. And so we're gonna have to do a meet and greet, and I'm gonna have to sit there and I'm gonna have to watch these interactions. So basically that's how I do it. It just depends on what kind of cat they're looking for, if our spirits vibe mostly, and if the cat is going to be safe. If I don't feel the cat is going to be safe there, then no. The cat will never even make it to see your home because I'm coming first without the cat.
Yeah.
And we got to do a walkthrough and talk and things of that nature.
So our shelter, we run solely on donations from the public, supporters, benefactors, and I just wondered how it worked for you financially, receiving donations? Is it something that's difficult for you to try and receive donations to help you carry on your work? Because obviously we have a shelter in the middle of Rome. We have a lot of tourists who come and visit us, but you're one man sort of out there on your own doing it. What's it like for you financially to try and receive donations to pay all the vet bills and sterilization and all the food that you need on a daily basis?
All I can say is I'm extremely blessed. I want to give a huge shout out. You make sure you put this in there.
We will.
I want to give a huge shout out to Team Black Noah, because I know a lot of other rescuers out there that's doing it. And I don't say this to be to brag or anything. I don't say this to boast, but I know for a fact I have the best team of supporters in the whole wide world. Whatever's needed is done. Like, I seriously think I have the best team in the world. I don't care how large the bill is. You know, like the dog Patch, the dog Ike I rescued, his bill, because he had 2 broken hips, pelvis fractured in 3 places, and his bill was roughly about $5,500.
Wow.
I mean, the team raised that in like 2 or 3 days. Like, they're amazing. So donations have been, God has blessed me. And I want to give a huge shout out to Team Black Noah. That hasn't even been an issue. And I'm always thanking them, because that was the most stressful part in the beginning. And I gotta credit the DODO for that, though. I gotta credit the DODO for that. I had local support, because like I said, I've been on several news stations locally, radio stations locally. So I had local support, but it was nothing like it was before the DODO. So I gotta give a huge shout out to the DODO as well, for making that happen. But yeah, Team Black Noah is amazing, and I always let them know that they made that part of it like really, really simple. It was one point in time where, you know, if I would have found Ike, and the bill was $5,500. Like I said, I was working 2 jobs up until recently. The bill was $5,500. You know, it would have been rough. It would have been really, really rough, you know. But they've made it like super easy to where I don't even worry about the hospital bills, the vet bills anymore. Like, that's the least of my worries now. Like, my worries just center around, you know, making sure that the animals are safe. And most of my stress is not financial anymore, as far as when it comes to having vet bills, expensive vet bills. Like, and that's taken a lot of burden off of me, taking a lot off my plate. My worry is about just the animals staying safe. Like, I found the cat, Elijah, the other day with the broken jaw and ruptured eye, you know, or this other dog, Red, that's I found out 2 days ago has cancer and possibly 6 to 12. That's where my worry is now. It's not, you know, the vet bills or things of that nature, because of the team I got. They're really, really strong.
So do you feel that the network you've built up on social media has helped you with that?
Absolutely.
And do you think it comes mostly from Instagram?
Yeah, definitely Instagram. Definitely Instagram. I got a lot of people that, you know, follow me and friends on Facebook, but, you know, it's definitely Instagram.
Okay. So I'm just looking here. So I wanted to know about the weather conditions that you face in Alabama, where you live. So what is a typical summer and winter like there for you when it comes to caring for the colonies?
A typical summer here is hot.
How hot?
I would say the average would be between 85 and 90 a day.
Wow.
But that 85 and 90 would feel like 95 and 103 because we're in the South. Alabama is very, very humid. So an 85-degree day here, which is hot already, an 85-degree day here would really feel like 94. And it's a wet, sticky heat. It's a very wet, sticky heat. Just walking from your house to your car, with loading your car with foods or supplies or things of that nature. It may take 2 minutes, but you're already going to be sweating profusely and your shirt is already stuck to your back. So it's a very wet, damp, sticky heat. So, yes, it's pretty hot here in the summers. Winter, I actually prefer the winter myself. I hate it for the cats because, they're out there in the cold. Typically, we'll get down to the low 30s, high 20s. So, a winter night here may be 28 degrees. If it's really, really cold, we may dip into the teens, 18, 19 degrees. Still cold, but, nothing like it would be in New York or Boston where, they're down to 3 degrees or something like that. Yeah.
So how does the weather impact you in the colony? So when it's really, really hot, how do you manage the food? So if you have wet food there, how do you stop flies going inside or the water evaporating? What kind of things would you give for advice or other people in these conditions to make sure the feeding stations run well?
Well, I recently just found this product for flies. Flies and ants were my biggest issue, but basically, just through trial and error, because I started off using diatomaceous earth, and to me it sucks because it gets wet, and once it gets wet, it gets nasty and it smells like horrible. So I really stopped using diatomaceous earth, the food grade, by the way. I only use the food grade. I really stopped using that stuff. And just through trial and error, one day I was like, okay, every time I put Vaseline on my hands, it gets really, really sticky and stuff. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start coating the outside of my bowls because my biggest problem was ants. Yeah. I would put food out and I would go back the next day and the food is still there. And it's, thousands of ants on the bowls. Cats are just looking at the food, still hungry. So, if they wasn't able to eat it before the ants overran it or overtook it, they couldn't eat anymore. So I just started buying Vaseline and coating my bowls really, really well on the outside in the rim, and no more ants. They can't crawl on the Vaseline. I put a really thick layer of it, and it's so cheap. It's not, $10, you get 10 huge bottles. And that stuff will last, a good coating will last weeks because even when it rains, it just beads up and it still works. So unlike diatomaceous earth, so that took care of my ant problem. What I do in the summertime, I freeze my water overnight in gallon jugs. I take it out in the morning about 9 o'clock. And by the time I leave at 11 and start getting to my stops, it's already unthawing. And then, they have really, really cold water, almost like a slushy. So I know by the time, the day progresses and goes on, even a couple of hours, that water is still going to be cold because when I poured it, it was like a frozen slushy. Yeah. So the flies became a really, really bad problem this summer, but I had got this product and I can't remember the name right now. I want to say it's called